Everybody, please have a seat. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll inquire if over the break anyone was exposed to conversations, engaged in conversations, or otherwise researched or learned or sought any information about the case. I see no hands. Thanks very much. We're going to continue with the state's case. If you would call your witness, please.
The state calls Andrew Smith.
Mr. Smith, do you believe you could testify safely and responsibly without wearing a mask? That would be our preference if you can.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead and remove your mask then. And next I'll ask you to please stand so that the oath can be administered.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear for the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. And then you can pull the microphone back up nice and close. Perfect.
Good afternoon, sir. Could you please state your name and then spell it out so everyone who's taking notes just knows how it's spelled?
Andrew Smith,
And how do you spell it?
Alpha, November, Delta, Romeo, Echo, Whiskey.
Okay. And your last name, Smith, common spelling?
Sierra, Mike, India, Tango, Hotel.
And how old are you, sir?
22, sir.
And what area of the country do you live in?
Kansas, sir.
Okay. Do you know someone by the name of Chandler Halderson?
Yes, sir.
How did you meet Chandler Halderson?
Playing video games while I was stationed in Germany, sir.
And do you see Mr. Halderson in the courtroom here today?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Before
What's going to
you
happen
ask-
here is the judge is going to give some instructions, and then I'm going to ask you where he is. So wait one second.
I would ask everyone who's not in the jury box to lower their masks for just a short moment so that all faces are observed by the witness. You can replace your masks. Thank you.
Did you see Mr. Halderson here in the courtroom?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me where he's sitting and kind of what he's wearing?
Over on the right, sir, in a suit, sir.
I'd ask the, and,
Is he at a table?
Yes, sir.
Very good.
I'll ask the
Record
record
will-
reflect identification.
It will reflect identification.
Sure. Let's talk a little bit about, I guess, that time period in which you met Mr. Halderson. You said you were stationed over in Germany.
Yes, sir.
Were you in the military?
Yes, sir.
What branch?
Army, sir.
And where in Germany were you stationed?
Ansbach, sir.
And whereabout is that?
Middle of BFE, sir.
And how did you meet someone who lived here in Wisconsin while you were in Germany?
Playing video games on Arma 3 server, sir.
And what type of video games were you playing?
Mostly FPS, sir.
What type of game is that?
So, go around, complete objectives, and capture certain scenarios, sir.
Okay. Is it a shooting game?
Yes, sir.
And some people on the jury maybe play video games, other people don't. If you had to explain to someone how you end up meeting someone playing a video game, could you describe how that happens?
So you'll connect to a server, and then you can type in voice channels or type in voice channels. You can type in text channels, meet people. You can die by other players and interact through them like that by just typing them, or if you guys get in a voice altercation at safe zones where some players can't necessarily hurt each other.
Okay. And so how about did you end up meeting Chandler? Was he just in one of these games and you talked to him?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you talk to him a lot?
Yes, sir.
Did you develop a friendship?
Yes, sir.
About what time was this? What year was this?
I want to say it was 2019 or 2018. It was shortly after my son was born, sir.
Okay. And how often, if you just had to give us a general overview, how often would you play video games with Chandler online?
Almost every day, sir.
Okay. And would you be talking and communicating during that time period?
Yes, sir.
Okay. At some point, you start to learn a lot about Chandler, I would imagine.
Yes.
Okay. Did you have any idea of, at the time, kind of what he was doing in life, school, work, anything like that?
As far as I knew, he was going to college in one of the towns somewhere in Wisconsin and doing all that.
Okay. At some point, you end up coming back to the United States.
Yes, sir.
Military service was over?
Something like that, sir.
Okay. At any point while you were in the military toward the end of your service, did you suffer an injury yourself?
Yes, sir. I was in Germany, and I was coming off the 50 cal range, and a German totaled our Humvee, and I got in a Humvee wreck. So I slammed my forehead on a hard side wall of the vehicle, unfortunately. So
You had a head injury?
essentially, sir.
Okay. Were you talking to Mr. Halderson around this time, in between that head injury and when you came back to the United
Yes, sir.
States? Okay. When you came back to the United States, what state did you move to or live in?
Kansas, sir.
Is that your home?
For now.
Okay. Had you ever spent much time in Wisconsin before?
No, sir.
Okay. After you moved back to Wisconsin or to the United States, did your frequency of playing video games with Mr. Halderson, did it increase, decrease, stay the same?
Increase, sir. I was in the same time zone.
Okay. And would you continue to play the same types of games?
Yes, sir.
All right. Is there any specific weapons that Mr. Halderson liked when he was playing these games?
It really depended on what we were playing. On Tarkov, or Escape from Tarkov is what the game was called. It would range for realistically to whatever we could find inside the video game, because not everything was necessarily easily to collect, but the SKS was certainly a weapon that was fun to use in Tarkov and was something that I had grown interest in as well.
And around this time, after you came back to the United States, did you learn anything more about where Mr. Halderson was in life? Had jobs changed, school changed, or was things the same for him?
Essentially, what I understood was he was still going to college, and he at some point had gone back to Windsor, or I think it's called Windsor, and had started working for some company installing solar panels or working on contracts for solar panels.
Okay. At any point in your discussions with Mr. Halderson, did he get another job, or was that the last job you knew him having?
As far as I know, that was it, sir.
At some point, you decided to come visit Chandler.
Yes, sir.
Whenabouts was that?
Sometime during, I think it was June, sir.
Of this past year?
Yes.
In generally, just how did that come about? Did he ask you to come up? Did you decide to come up?
So it was one of those last-minute decisions I was able to make, sir. So my wife had ended up going to visit family in Ohio, and she was going to be gone for 2 weeks. So I went and looked at how many points I had. I was able to take off work, and I went and called off work that day so I could come up and have a weekend with driving up there and then spending 2 days with him, sir.
Had you ever been to Wisconsin before?
No, sir.
Okay. It's a long drive up here.
No shit. Yes, sir.
It's okay. So everyone slips up. I'm showing you what's been marked in this case as exhibit number 392. Is that you and Chandler up here?
Yes, sir.
All right. And I'll just move 392 into evidence. I'll just show it to the jury if that's okay, Judge.
Any objection?
No
to it?
objection.
It's received, you may publish.
Where'd you stay when you were up here with Mr. Halderson?
In their family home in the basement, sir.
Did you meet his parents?
Yes, sir.
Okay. When you were up here, what kind of things did you do for fun? Where'd you go?
So we went swimming at some river at some point, and then we went and drove around to the different department stores, and we're looking at weapons and all that. So we went to Cabela's. We went to, I want to say it was Bass Pro, but that doesn't sound right. I know we went to Gander Mountain, and then we went to like 1 or 2 other places, but I can't remember what they were.
Okay. Showing you a photograph labeled exhibit number 563.
Jesus.
Did you take that picture?
Yes, sir.
And what is that?
The river, sir.
That you went swimming?
Yes, sir.
And who took you there?
Chandler and his girlfriend at the time.
All right. I'll move 563 into evidence.
No objection.
It is received.
And I asked to publish it on the Elmo. Actually, it's not set up right now. I'm just going to show everybody.
Oh, that's
Was that a river or a lake you were swimming at?
River, sir.
And was there a city across the street or across the river from there?
Yes, sir, and there was a bridge on the right.
Having never been to Wisconsin before, you don't know exactly what river that was or where you were?
I'm just here, sir.
Okay. How long did you stay up here with Chandler and the family when you came to visit?
So I got up there on Saturday morning, right around 5 a.m., I think, and then I stayed there until Sunday evening around 1700, and then went and departed and was able to arrive back home on Monday around 2 or 4 in the morning, somewhere between, sir.
Okay. When you visited Wisconsin to see Chandler, you brought him a gift.
Yes, sir.
What did you bring him?
I brought him a 20-inch barrel SKS.
How did you acquire this gun?
So I had purchased it on a gun broker, and I went and had it sent to my FL, and then I went and sat in the FL until I went and did the FL transfer. So I purchased it initially because I really thought, like, oh, well, I like it in the video game. I might like it in real life. And then I fired it. It sat in my safe, and then I never touched it again. And then it just dawned on me, like, well, I'm going to give it to someone who might actually appreciate this weapon and take care of it and all that. So I ended up giving it to Chandler as a gift.
Okay. So while you like guns, you didn't particularly love this gun.
No, sir.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been marked as exhibit number 391. You know what that document is?
Yes, sir. It's a FFL transfer paperwork, sir.
And you've been saying the phrase FFL, correct?
Yes.
What does that mean?
That's a federal firearms license holder.
Meaning someone who's licensed to sell firearms and fills out
Yes,
paperwork.
and does the correct background checks and such.
Got it. I'll move 391 into evidence.
No objection.
It is received.
This document has your signature on it and the person who sold it, their signature, correct?
Yes, sir.
And it has the serial number of the weapon that you purchased.
Yes, sir.
Got it. Now, when you gave the gun to Chandler, did he pay you for it?
No, sir.
It was a gift.
Yes, sir.
Did you document in any way transferring that gun to him?
Yes, sir.
How did you choose? Did you fill out paperwork like this?
I took his photo ID that the state issued him, and I took it right next to the serial number, annotating that this was me giving this weapon to this individual, so that way, if anything like this would occur, that it wouldn't necessarily come back to me.
Okay. It was important to you to document that.
Most times it is, yes.
Okay. So I'm showing you what's been marked as exhibit number 393, 394, and then maybe a more zoomed in version, which is 564. Do those all appear to be just general versions of what you did there?
Yes, sir.
And so these are Chandler's driver's license and the serial number of that weapon.
Yes, sir.
All right. I'll move 393, 394, and 564 into evidence.
No objection.
They are received.
And I'll publish them to the jury just by showing it, if that's fine with everyone. Okay. So I'm showing first this one. This is Chandler's ID, and then you put it up next to that serial number.
Yes, sir.
Another version, zoomed in, same thing.
Yes, sir.
And then the actual serial number zoomed in a little bit closer.
Yes, sir.
Can you read the serial number for us of this gun from the zoomed in picture?
Yes, sir.
Slowly.
1017948 Papa.
Okay. So 1017948
P.
Pete, Paul. Okay. Had Chandler asked you for this gun, or was this just your idea?
I think he had at one point asked for it as a joke, but mostly it was my idea, sir.
Okay. You brought him other things that go with the gun?
Yes, sir.
What type of things?
So I had brought him a steel canister that had contained roughly 480 rounds of 7.62 by 39 steel case tool ammo.
And is that the ammunition that goes with that weapon?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And showing you what's been marked, exhibit 395, 396, 397. Do those appear to be that canister of ammunition?
Yes, sir.
And are you fairly confident that's the one you brought?
Well, I mean, I'm the only weirdo that stencils his ammo can, so yes.
You put those stencils on there.
Yes, sir.
All right, so I'd move 397, 395, and 396 into evidence.
No objection.
They are received.
And I'll move to publish to 396.
Yes, of course.
And so showing the jury this picture, when you say you stenciled this ammo can, what do you mean by that?
So I've got plenty of different kinds of rounds in my home, so I'll go and have different cans for them, and I take a spray can, I'll buy the stencils so I can make sure I know what I'm grabbing if I need something before I go to the range, so I'm not running around like a chicken with my head cut off trying to figure out what can goes to what.
So this yellow paint that says 7.62 by 39, that's you that stenciled that on there.
Yes, sir.
And briefly, just showing you exhibit number 398, 399, 400, 401. Do all of those appear to be the ammunition that was inside of that can?
Yes, sir.
All right, I'll move 398 through 401,
No objection.
They are received.
and I'd move to publish. I'll publish just for purposes of just showing the jury something, 398 and 400.
Very good.
And these are just those ammunition.
Yes, sir.
Okay, there was a lot of ammunition.
A bit.
How did Chandler react when you gave him the gun?
Oh, he was happy
What do you mean? How do you know he was happy, or how do you know that?
because he had a big smile on his face when I had given it to him as a gift.
Were you aware whether his parents that he was living with were gun people or wanted guns in their home?
As far as I knew that or what I was explained by Chandler was that his parents understood the reason why firearms exist in this world, and not that they necessarily support having them, but they're helpful in situations.
Sure. To your knowledge, did Chandler have any guns?
As far as I knew, he told me that he had owned a AR-15 with a barrel extension that had to be welded on or something like that. It was kind of looked like an M16 almost.
Did you ever see that gun?
He had shown me a picture of it on on the app called Discord, but I don't have any documentation of that.
When you were here in Wisconsin, did you ever see any guns in the Halderson house?
I think I asked about it, but I think he said that they had it at the wherever their cabin was.
What did Chandler do with the gun? Were you able to figure out where he put it in the house?
Yeah, he had initially, so if you would walk down the flight of stairs in the basement, you would look left, there was like a little wood pile, and he had stuck it in the middle section there because it was, I understood that they might not be happy about having this firearm. So, but he had told me he was going to be moving soon to do a career in SpaceX in Florida, so he was just going to take it with him and move out there with it.
Okay. Were there any magazines that came with the gun?
Yes, sir. 3.
How many?
3.
And those all went with that gun?
Yes, sir.
Were they loaded when you gave them to him?
Not initially, sir.
How did they become loaded?
I think we were bullshitting with the magazine, sir, and both of us and were like, he was asking me how to load it, so I was like, oh, and I was showing him how to pack the magazine.
Sure. Aside from, and I think we've got it, but aside from the gun, the 3 magazines, the ammo can, and then the 400 some rounds of ammunition, was there anything else related to the gun that you gave to Chandler?
The optic that came on the weapon.
The sight, if for most people. If people aren't gun people, what's an optic?
It's the same thing, essentially.
If I showed you that gun, would you recognize it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You're not going to touch it. The detectives, in fact, are going to touch it, but it's already been received into evidence.
Roger.
In this case. So this is Detective Shunk, who I think you've met in this case. Does that appear to be the weapon that you gave to Chandler?
Can you flip it over? Yes, sir.
And looking at this zoomed in picture of the serial number from the driver's license photo, you can stand up if you need to. Would you confirm to me if that's the serial number, in fact, on that weapon?
Yes, sir.
And I think just because you weren't speaking into the microphone, because I asked you to stand up, that last response was yes, that is the serial number?
Yes, sir.
The magazines themselves, would you recognize those if you saw them?
Yes, sir.
How so?
Well, I don't remember. My brain doesn't always work correctly sometimes, but I can remember most things for firearms. So I know 2 of them should be made by ProMag, and then one has a metal bottom with some black screwed up something on it.
When you gave Chandler the 3 magazines, and obviously there's 1 gun, but there's 3 magazines, there's a good deal of ammunition, several hundred rounds.
480.
480. Were you giving him everything you had related to that gun?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you have any reason to keep any of the other things?
No, sir.
Okay. Just 1 second, we're going to show you some other stuff.
Gotcha.
And this might take a second. And again, you'll notice the detective's wearing gloves, so he'll show you anything and he'll turn things around if you ask him, but we'll have to ask you not to touch anything.
Roger.
just so the jury knows, because of the break that we had in suspending the trial, I asked the detectives to reseal all of the evidence boxes since we weren't going to be able to access them for a number of days. And that's the process that's happening at this time.
And so, can you flip that box over for me? Showing you what's been marked as 288, does that appear to be a magazine consistent with what you gave Mr. Halderson?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what defining characteristics are on that magazine that lead you to believe that is in fact one you gave him?
The big ugly splotch on the bottom of the magazine, sir.
All right, and I'll have the detective display that to the jury. All right, and so we're going to do the same process with the next two. And the next exhibit we're going to deal with is 289. Again, same process. We're showing you 289. You can ask that be moved any way you'd like. Does that appear to be consistent with the magazine that you gave Chandler Halderson?
Yes, sir.
And would that fit into the SKS rifle that you just looked at?
Yes, sir.
We'll go to the next one. And while the detective's pulling out the next one, the last one, which I can touch the outside, is Exhibit 288. You yourself have fired this gun in the past.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are you aware of exactly how much ammunition you gave to Chandler?
Yes, sir.
How much?
The box of ammo that I have purchased had 500 rounds in it, sir. I've shot roughly 20, didn't enjoy the firearm, and gave him 480 rounds.
And when you say 480, is that an estimate, or do you know that to be exact?
That should be precise.
While you were here in Wisconsin with Chandler, did you all fire the weapon?
No, sir.
showing you that exhibit. You can ask for it to be moved any way you'd like.
Yes, sir.
Is that consistent with the magazine you gave Chandler?
Yes, sir.
Did you discuss with Chandler when you gave him the weapon in June of this past year, anything more about what he was going to do with it other than I think you said he was going to move to Florida with his new job? Anything else? Did you discuss? Was he going to go hunting? Anything like that?
I don't believe so, sir.
You said you visited him over the course of a couple days. Did you give it to him right away or later on in the weekend?
I think it was either Sunday that I gave it to him or it was someday on Saturday that I gave it to him.
After you gave it to him and he placed it, I think you said under under boards?
It was so it was almost like a bench like this, but there's a hollow center that had stuff stacked inside of it, and he just kind of shoved it in there since there was stuff blocking the front path of it from view.
Do you know where, did the gun ever come out after he put it in there? Did you ever see it again?
We could have, sir. I think we could have played around with it, just showing how it works. And like, keep in mind, I had this weapon for a couple months, just had it sit in my safe, so I've had plenty of time to figure out a little bit of the ins and outs of it. So.
Okay. Did he place? Do you know where Chandler placed the magazines or the ammo box?
I don't recall, sir.
Okay. Did Chandler tell you anything more about his job at SpaceX?
Not really, sir. Just that he had an opportunity that he was looking forward to.
You left at some points and you continued talking to Chandler, playing video games after you went back home?
Yes, sir.
At some point, did Chandler suffer some sort of injury?
Yes, sir.
What
As
do you know
far
about
as
that?
I know, he went down the stairs and had fell somehow and screwed up his head or his neck.
And did that injury, according to Chandler, did that end up impacting his job or anything like that?
As far as I knew, so it seemed that because of the injury, he wasn't going to be able to take a flight out to Florida to do this SpaceX thing. But other than that, he didn't really explain what was wrong, just that he wasn't going to be able to fly out there and he wasn't able to look at computer screens or anything like that with so much blur on the screen or motion blur.
Did you find out at some point that Chandler's parents were missing?
Yes, sir.
How did you find out?
It was shortly after the 4th of July when I had came back from Texas from visiting my other buddy. He had gave me a sort of, not hysterical per se, but a pretty upsetting call that his parents hadn't got back to him or he hadn't seen them.
Sure. And then the cadence of things was this was after the head injury?
Yes, sir.
Did Chandler tell you anything about the head injury in terms of specifics about what was going to happen or how
He
severe
told
it
me
was?
that he would have to wear a neck brace and that they were supposed to drill a hole in his head or something like that to alleviate some sort of pressure.
Okay. Did you talk to Chandler about his parents being missing?
Yes, sir.
Tell me about those conversations.
Well, day one when he told us, because he had told me and my friend that he's friends with that I visited when I was down in Texas, he told us that they had been missing. So we both suggested to him that, hey, if this is really a big concern for you, you might want to contact law enforcement immediately.
Okay. What did Chandler say to that?
He said, well, they might turn up, so I'll just wait a few days, and so it goes.
After that conversation, do you recall having any other conversations with Chandler about his parents being missing?
Just talking about how or where they could have end up it or what was going on with the situation.
Was Chandler expressing worry to you or that he was concerned?
He seemed concerned, yes.
At some point, sure, and obviously now you're aware that Chandler was arrested for what happened.
Yes, sir.
You began having to have some conversations with law enforcement because a gun that was found very close to Bart Halderson, Chandler's father, was that gun that we just showed you. And so law enforcement started talking to you, right?
Yes, sir. Well, I had reached out to them immediately upon figuring out that he had been arrested.
You've been cooperative with law enforcement the whole time, haven't you?
I'm not going to be a broken piece of glass, sir.
Meaning you'll help if you need to.
Yes.
Okay. The police, in fact, visited you down in where you live at some point.
Yes, sir.
You, when asked, had given them access to things like bank records or your phone and things of that sort.
Yes, sir.
And you've provided photographs whenever you could.
Yes, sir.
Why was that important to you to assist?
Well, to put it bluntly, sir, I served in the Army, and I'm not going to get fucked for something that I didn't do.
Where were you July 1st, July 2nd, 2021?
Crystal Beach, Texas, sir.
In fact, what is Exhibit 566?
Looks like my bank statement, sir.
And where's that bank statement show that you are?
So if you follow this down, so you can see that I went and did some sort of purchase at a gas station at Texas at 702. Then follow this down, 702 Lufkin, Texas. And then keep following it down. You can see 702 Crystal Beach, Texas. Keep following down. You can see Lufkin again, sir, and then Crystal Beach, sir. And then more purchases at Crystal Beach, Texas, sir. And then a few of interspersed things that my wife had been purchasing at Dollar Tree, apparently.
And where was she at?
She was in Manhattan still, sir, or Junction City, sir.
Junction City. And in all of these purchases, and this is a bank statement from the 1st, looks like through the 10th, there's not a single one from Wisconsin, correct?
No, sir.
Nothing from Illinois? No?
No, sir.
Iowa?
No, sir.
Minnesota?
Unless I have the power of God to teleport, sir, I don't think that's going to occur.
Understood. I'll move 566 into evidence.
Any
No
objection?
objection.
It's received.
I don't think it needs to be published. I think your bank statements can
Has
just be right there.
information been redacted on?
They have been redacted if ultimately
All you
anyone,
can see is how broke I am.
that's fine. And in fact, at times, you're aware that the police verified your location in other ways, phone records and things of that
I'm
sort.
sure they did, sir.
Yeah. You were never in Wisconsin in July of 2021.
No, sir.
One second. Thank you, sir.
Cross-examination?
Good afternoon, Mr. Smith.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
I'd like to first ask you a few questions about that SKS that you purchased. Is it correct that you purchased that initially for yourself?
Yes, sir. Or ma'am, sorry.
Is it fair to say you're interested in guns?
In firearms, yes, ma'am.
You said you went and fired that SKS maybe 20 times?
I had shot it once and put 20 rounds to the rifle itself through my hands, ma'am.
After that, you decided it wasn't that appealing to you?
No, ma'am. Just too much of kick, too much of anything that didn't make me happy about the weapon.
What do you mean by too much kick?
So each caliber of weapon or bullet will fire X amount of powder through it. So for example, the SKS, which shoots 7.62 by 39 or whatever it is in Russia, it shoots a bigger payload of powder versus 5.56/223, which shoots up to 27 grains of powder. So it's not as much kick, but you can still put enough firepower down range.
Why does the kick make it unappealing to you?
Because if I had to defend my family from a home intruder, I think 5.56 is going to be a lot easier and a lot faster for me to react with than a 7.62 by 39 rounds.
Compared to other guns or firearms that you've used, the SKS is somewhat louder than similar type firearms, correct?
Not necessarily. It depends. It really depends on a lot of things along where the location is. If you're in let's say you're shooting it in here, it's going to be loud as hell because there's all the encasing around you. If you're outside, it's going to be not as loud, but it's still going to be pretty loud.
Louder than a handgun.
Not necessarily.
Under similar circumstances, louder than a handgun.
Possibly. Yes.
Now, you're familiar with your familiarity with firearms. You're familiar with the terms of flash suppressor or flash hider?
Yes, ma'am.
And what are those?
So a flash hider, depending on what you have, it can make either the ball flame that comes out of it a lot bigger. It can make it so when you're shooting or at a prone position, when you're firing, the weapon gets pulled forward versus sending the recoil back, so it's not as much. And it really depends on what you're talking about specifically. You can't just throw a flash hider in with one of the other things because they all do different things.
Potentially, they could also reduce the sound.
Not necessarily unless you have a suppressor.
So a flash suppressor can reduce the sound.
A flash suppressor, if you can go out and buy a suppressor with a tax stamp, yes.
So could any kind of silencer?
Yes, ma'am.
And you didn't provide any of those with this SKS when you
No, ma'am,
gifted it
but
to
with
Mr.
the
Halderson?
SKS's barrel at the end of it, regardless, it's kind of an act of God almost to put a suppressor on. So there's barrel threading, which was not on this SKS at the end of it. There might be a special attachment you can get and purchase and put onto this firearm, but unless you have certain special attachments, it might not necessarily fit in correctly or seat correctly, which can cause problems itself and cause an obstruction.
Bottom line, though, this SKS that you gifted Mr. Halderson didn't have any of that.
No, ma'am. It's the standard end of an AK-74, essentially.
Now, when you gifted this SKS to Mr. Halderson, you talked about this procedure you use with taking a photo of someone's driver's license with the serial number from the firearm. Do you
Yes,
remember
ma'am.
that? That's not something you only have done with Mr. Halderson. It's something you've done anytime you've sold, transferred, or gifted firearms, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you've done that several times?
Yes, ma'am.
How many?
Depends on a lot of things. If I have, so I can have an AR-15 that I'll buy and I'll build it and then it'll sit in my safe for whatever reason for a long time and then I can go like, oh, okay, well, go and sell it. But as per how many I've sold, that's none of your business, frankly.
Okay. That's really all I have. Thank you.
Any redirect? No. May this witness be excused and released.
He is both, yes.
Thank you, sir. Have a good
Yes,
rest of your day.
Have a good day, sir.
Thank you. And the next witness, please.
State calls Clint Self, remember the same?